Hey folks, welcome back to Mark Kelly Farm. We got a surprise last night when we were going through our social media. Our local grocery store got in some whole lugs of peaches from California and are selling them by the lug. So we went down and got some. Come along for the ride and we'll show you what we're going to do with them. I went and hauled corn this morning, and before I left to go driving, I went to the grocery store before they had a run on these things and bought 3 lugs full of them. And they were nice enough to put them in their cooler until I got done hauling corn today, and then I was able to go back by and pick them up. Beautiful peaches. These are called Fay Alberta variety, or Fay Alberta, however you want to pronounce it. But you can see they pick them kind of green, so they'll make the trip, but they do ripen, and they'll look like these when they're ripe. So we're excited about these. We're going to can these up, and I didn't know when I was in the store they had them sized. This lug here is obviously a lot larger peaches than this lug here. I wish I would have noticed that. I would have got all 3 lugs that size, but these are good for fresh eating, but we're going to cut these up anyway. They'll fit in the jar just fine like the rest of them. So we're going to try a little experiment this year. Last year we cold packed our peaches, and we'll show you the difference between cold pack and hot pack. So here's last year's peaches. You can see once the peaches cook in the jar and they soften up, they get a little bit tighter in the jar. They take up less space, and that leaves an area on the bottom of juice, which it doesn't cause a problem. If you're going to send this to a fair to be judged, obviously this is not good, but you still have a good amount of peaches in there. Now, if you need 4 cups of peaches, chances are you're going to have to open 2 jars, but don't waste this juice. Put that in some iced tea. You'll have the best peach tea you ever drank in your life. Now, I've been known just to drink that peach juice just like it is, because we don't do a heavy syrup, we do a light syrup, so it's really good. Now, the problem with hot packing peaches is sometimes they tend to get too soft in the jar. You're cooking them a little bit longer than you would if you were just to cold pack them and pour the hot liquid over them. But we're going to try an experiment this year. It's going to be kind of a hybrid process between hot pack and cold pack. We're going to flash heat those with hot syrup, let them sit in the hot syrup for a little bit till they get just a little bit pliable, but we're not going to boil them. And then we're going to get them into the jars, stuff them into the jars, and then top them up with juice. And we're going to see if that lessens that shrinkage in the jar to where you get that liquid on the bottom. We're going to give it a shot, so you'll see just like we do how it comes out. So we're not going to do all these today. It's already 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Kelly will be home in a little bit, but we got time to do one batch. So what I was going to go do is go through these boxes and find the ones that are the most ripe, like this one here. Still firm to the touch, but this is riper than the rest of them, and this is going to start getting soft quicker. So we'll go through and get all the ones like these and process those tonight. And then Kelly and I will do the rest of these tomorrow. There's 2 layers in these boxes. These boxes are kind of nice because they don't allow the peaches to get so bruised. They have a nice little cubby to sit in. You can see there's 2 layers in the box. So we've got our equipment out here at the table. I'm going to sit down and start peeling peaches and cutting the pits out of them. These are Freestone variety of peaches, which people where I come from don't generally can Freestone. They'll use it's called a clean peach, where the pit in the center doesn't just pull right out. And those tend to hold up to canning a little bit better. But people have canned Freestone successfully, so we're going to do that. So we'll peel it and put all our pits and stuff in here. And then I'm going to slice them into the jar, and I'll pack that jar pretty good before I dump it in our pot, so I know about how much we're going to need for 10 quarts is what we're going to do. We'll probably do maybe one or two extra of these jars, so we make sure we fill our 10 for the canner. Already got my water bath canner in here with the jars and full of water, and bringing it to a boil because I want this boiling already when we put the jars in, so we have the least exposure of heat to the peaches as we can get. And I've already got our syrup hot. Now we're doing a light syrup, and for a light syrup you're going to use 1 cup of sugar for every 4 cups of water. So a gallon would be 4 cups of sugar, obviously, or 1 cup of sugar for every quart, because there's 4 cups in a quart, if it's easier to remember that way. And that'll make you a light syrup. And peaches are sweet enough, you don't need a heavy syrup on those. And I do the same thing with pears. Sometimes with pears I'll go to a medium syrup, but the light would work just fine. So this is all ready to go. I got my rings over here. We're going to get 10 of our lids in some boiling water to get those sterilized. And we'll be ready to go as soon as those peaches get sliced. Now once I slice the peaches and get about 15 pounds or so is what it's going to take, we'll pour this hot syrup over the peaches in that pot, and we'll let it set until those peaches just barely start to get pliable, and then they'll pack a lot easier into the jars. Unpacking this first box, they even put a little cushion mat in here between the layers to keep the top layer from bruising the bottom layer. That's pretty good packing there. Pretty heads up. So we've got all the really ripe ones out of the bottom. We put the really green ones that we had down there with them. So we'll put these big ones back in this box now. Now checking these peaches, the first spot you're going to start feeling any give is along the top right here. So if you feel any give at all in that peach, and this one we do, we're going to pull that one out to be processed. But like this one here, that's absolutely no give. They're nice and firm. All those are good to stay here. So we'll go around and we'll check these. That's the bottom of that one. These here are all still fine. So we'll turn these up to where we can get at the tops of them. This one here needs to go. And we'll just keep checking. Got our peaches out that are prime. We found one that had a little bruise spot on it. So we want to cut that off and get that cooked. We don't want to leave that laying around, even though the peach itself is a little green, but that's going to be okay. Basically, we ended up with one full lug box. These two we were able to sort out, and those are just the greener ones in there now. So now it's about peeling and pitting. So when you're peeling a peach, it's much like peeling an apple. The first thing you want to do is get the point of your knife down in the top where the stem goes in, and go in like a 45-degree angle. And you're going to get this little top piece out, and then that allows you to go around with a knife. And this edge of the knife blade, you're looking at it to be right underneath the skin. You kind of hold the knife in one spot and just turn the fruit around on your knife like this, just holding it right underneath the skin with this top edge. That's the edge that matters. The bottom edge is going to be the top edge when it comes back around. So it's the only side you need to worry about. And once you get proficient at this, you can peel a peach just about as fast as some of the people would like blanch them and try to take the skins off. And then once the skin's off, you go around the top to bottom of the peach like this, and then twist your knife, get it to open up. Whichever side doesn't have the pit, you're done with that. Now the side that has the pit, just barely score around the top where the stem goes in, and then put your finger down in there like that, and that pit will pop right out. Now you see a Freestone peach will have this signature kind of weird look in here in the red area, whereas when you're carving off of a cling peach, that stays on the pit. That is just fine. It's not going to hurt your quality of your peaches any. In fact, It'll give them kind of a pink tint when you cook them. It'll be a real beautiful color. So I'm just throwing my peach halves in the pot here, and then we'll come back through later and just slice them real quick. Got our big pot of peaches here, ready to slice. Now if you're canning peach halves, you'd be pretty much done, ready to can there, but we're going to do slices. So our peels. Now back in the day when the poor people worked for the rich people, this is what they would take home to their families, and they'd have peach peel pie. They'd wash that up and make pies. Those peels are edible. They of course wouldn't use the pits. Or you can take this stuff, put it in a pot, again minus the pits, barely cover it with water and bring it to a simmer and simmer it for a while, and then strain that juice out and then reduce it down, put some sugar in it and some pectin, and make peach jelly out of that. But these are going to go to the chickens. So we're going to start slicing all our peaches, and then we'll be ready to rock. There's our beautiful peaches all sliced up, ready to go. Now to keep them a beautiful color like this, there's a product you can use, a fruit fresh type product made by Ball. You can get this in your canning section, and you would put 1 teaspoon of that per cup of water or liquid that you're using to can. We have a gallon, so that's 16 teaspoons, but rather than do teaspoons, that's either 5 tablespoons or 1/3 of a cup. Always have one of these charts around. You don't want to sit there and do 16 teaspoons of something. So once this comes to a boil, we're going to take this pot. We've already added everything in it, the sugar, the fruit fresh, everything. And then we're going to dump it into this pot to cover this fruit, and rather than boil it in this pot. And then we'll let it sit until the peaches feel like they've softened just a little bit. And then we're going to hot foot getting these things in the jar. Our big canner is just about ready to boil. So we want this thing boiling when we put the jars in. So as we fill the jars, we're not going to be putting them in here one at a time. I'm going to set the jars here, all 10 jars or whatever we end up with. And they're all going to go in the water bath at the same exact time, because I don't want one in there 10 minutes longer than the others. And then since it's already boiling, we can immediately start our timer. And as soon as the timer expires, we're going to get these jars out of this pot, get them on the counter. Normally I would set them really close together to kind of maintain the heat, but doing this, I'm going to spread them apart a little bit so they cool off quicker. We don't want these peaches heated any longer than absolutely necessary. So they're going to stay in this water bath for 30 minutes. So we'll set our timer once we get the jars in there. So some of you are probably already asking the question in your head, how much peaches do you have, and then how much syrup do you need for those peaches? The answer is as much as you need, because the ratio to peaches to syrup is not important. The important ratio is sugar to water, which we told you was 1 cup for every quart. So there's 4 cups of sugar in that gallon of water. So just make sure you have enough syrup to cover your peaches, and that's fine. The ratio of peaches to water just doesn't matter. Got our boiling water dumped in here. A gallon was just about right. Perfect. We had probably maybe 2 gallons worth of sliced peaches here. So I'm just going to rotate these a little bit to get the top ones down into the boiling water. And as soon as I feel that they've softened up enough to where we want to put them in the jar, we'll get her done. Alright, I came real close with that 2-gallon guess, which would be 8 jars. We ended up with 7. So we're going to dump these in here real quick and start our time. Got our jars in, still at a boil. We left our couple empty jars in there just to keep the jars from rattling around. I'm going to let that come up just a little bit more. It's not rolling quite yet, but it'll only take a minute. We'll turn these back up to high, and then we'll start our timer. This is what we had left, just a little bowl for fresh eating. And then we have this beautiful syrup in here. Now what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to cook this down and actually make jelly out of that. It'll be fantastic. Process went pretty smooth because Kelly got home to help me. I was putting the peaches in the jars, and then she was topping it up with the syrup, putting the lids and the rings on, wiping the jars down, and setting them over on the counter ready to be put in the canner. So get some help if you're going to do this. It goes a lot smoother. Alright, we are back to a boil. So now we're going to set our timer. Let's cross our fingers that this experiment works. We won't know until they come out. I just forgot, I've been eating peaches all day long, so these will probably sit. So what I'll do with these is I'll make a small batch jam recipe. We have a video on that. If you have just a little bit of fruit, make it into jam, throw it in the fridge. You don't have to can it or anything. I'll post the video at the end of this video if you're interested in doing that. 30 minutes is up. We've got them taken out this second we hit 30 minutes. So it looks like we have some limited success here, but let's see what they look like in the morning. Well, it's the next morning. You can see we had maybe a little success. Maybe there's not as much juice in the bottom, but we still got some beautiful peaches, even if it wasn't 100% success. We basically ended up with cold pack peaches, and they're still firm. They haven't turned to mush, which was our goal. So whether it's a success or not is in the eye of the beholder, I guess. Here's our jam that we made last night with the excess peaches. Took that to coffee this morning, and we knocked out half of that already. Really good. Taking a look over here at the rest of our peaches, you can see how much green they've lost just overnight. And that's the thing with peaches. They go from ripe to rotten in literally a day. So doing the math, one lug gave us 7 quarts, and we have 2 more lugs to do. So we're going to end up with about 21 quarts of peaches. That's going to be fantastic. So thanks for coming along on the ride with our little experiment. It's going to be nice in the middle of winter to open up a little jar of summer. That's fantastic. So till next time, stay safe, stay healthy. We love you guys. Come back and see us here at Mark Kelly Farm. Remember that jelly video we're going to put up here in the corner. Catch you next time.